Moving forward, now I'd like to invite the principal investigator, Professor Brajesh Dubey, to provide an overview of the ITF project.
Okay, thanks, Ravi. And just for the audience, whatever questions you have, you can put it on the chat as the different presenters are doing the presentation. And we will take all the questions together at the end along with the panel discussion. So please, whatever question comes to your mind, you can put it on the chat. We'll collate everything together and we'll have a question answer session along with panel discussion with the panelists who are present here. Okay, so I'll get started. And let me share my screen. I think you should be able to see it now. Is it, you can see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, so thank you like for coming. And then what you did hear from Dr. Sankar Chila in the beginning, and then also from so Vatsalya regarding the different aspects of this, of the broad context of this particular project. So I will kind of focus on a little bit on again on the background. I'll go a little faster on the background because some of those have already been talked about. We all know that there is a carbon cost of transportation. Global CO2 emissions from transport is pretty high, and the road passenger vehicle is around 45%, freight is around 30%, and if you look at different mode of transport, we all know there is a carbon footprint there. And in terms of carbon footprint, the vehicular part is quite predominant, as you can see over here. Even if you look at the oil consumption, transport is around 54%. Out of that, if you look at the different vehicles, it's close to 77% actually comes from a different vehicle. And out of that, if you look at the road transport, we are looking at around 35 billion barrels per day. And among that, 66% goes to the kind of your light duty vehicles, and around 34% is the heavy duty vehicles. So vehicles do use a lot of oil, and mostly fossil fuel based oil, and they do contribute a lot of CO2 emissions. So it's a major contributor of global anthropogenic CO2 emissions. And we see that among overall, if you look at around 23% of global anthropogenic emissions are actually coming from transport sector. And among the transport sector, if you break it down 23 further, 74% is essentially coming from our vehicles. And among that, again, if you break it down, 47 and 54% you see in terms of the road transport emissions from different types of vehicles out there. So what does that mean is we have to reduce, if we want to reduce our carbon footprint, we have to kind of focus on that transport sector, especially things in like a road transport is one of the major components. So this project, we have it focused mostly on the road transport side. And in a country like India, we are going to see increase. Passenger transport activity is going to increase. As you can see over 2000 to 2020, the bar graph keeps on going up. And you can see different sectors what we are talking about. This is the same, actually, Sohu Vatsalya has shown that report. So it is from the same ITF report which you can find on, if you can go on online, you should be able to find it. And if you have difficulty finding it, let us know. We'll provide that link for you as well. So again, the freight transport activity in India by mode, it's again, we are looking at freight transport going up, passenger transport going up. That means more and more need for oil, and mostly it is fossil fuel oil. So, and that is creating a lot of emissions. And if you look at over the years, the emissions metric ton CO2 equivalent from the different transport sectors, we're talking about light commercial, medium freight truck, or the heavy duty truck, buses, air, rail, everything is going up. But here the focus mostly on the transport through the road network. So we have to get towards kind of net zero emissions, if that's the goal. If you want to get to this is from the Berkeley lab. It says that if we want to get to net zero emissions by 2050, these are the 8 actions we should do: increase solar, wind capacity, eliminate most electricity generation from coal, maintain current natural gas, increase zero emission vehicles, increase cell shares of heat pumps. All those buildings has to be more energy efficient. R&D for carbon capture, carbon neutral fuel, build electricity transmission pipeline, CO2, hydrogen gas. So where we are focusing here today is mostly at the number 7, looking at the carbon neutral fuel, if possible, can move from fossil fuel to more alternative fuel. And when we talk about alternative fuel, it's how green are those alternative fuel? That's also very, very important. So when we talk about this fuel production from well to pump, and also to pump to like tank to wheel, the usage of that fuel and the generation of that fuel, how how green they are. When we talk about green, we have to know what is the quantify that as well. So a lot of data is required, and later on in the presentation we'll hear more about the data too. Uh, and so as Vatsalya mentioned, that IIT Kharagpur is partnering with ITF. So ITF has partnered with IIT Kharagpur, and Niti Aayog is also supporting the activities, looking at Indian transport sector focused life cycle analysis. So as you saw in terms of our 3 bullets, we are developing life cycle inventory database for biofuels in Indian context. We are providing support for the model development. We are also working with the GREET team of US. We have because the goal is to whatever the data will produce, that should if we can make it usable in the GREET model. And so that we are looking at that too. And one of the important component and quite important component is also on the capacity building and stakeholder engagement. So I'll get to that third point in a minute. So when we're talking about this life cycle inventory, so we are looking at cradle to kind of gate activities. We are looking at different biofuel components in terms of biodiesel, feedstock cultivation, harvesting, delivery, biofuel production, and even for the vehicular component, the manufacturing, assembly, delivery, end of life. So all those things are being looked into. And in the next presentation, you will get more detail, like is exactly what we have found so far in this project. And you will see that a presentation done by Rajashri Bhar, who is the PhD student working with me on this particular project. So in terms of the capacity building, which is another, which Vatsalya mentioned, that very important part of this project, we are conducting today's webinar, which is of 2 hours duration. We are having few focused talks from experts. And then after that, we will have panel discussion and question and answer session to whatever, so again, whatever questions you have, please put it on the chat. And we are also planning to have 2 workshops. It will be on hybrid mode. And which will be a plan is to have 5 days duration, where if possible we'll try to look at maybe half a day. We are still working on the details of how to get the workshop done, so that we can get maximum participation, and subject to people's availability of timing as well. So there will be some hands-on session. The field visit is also being planned for those people who can make it to IIT Kharagpur, and for those who cannot make it, they can still join in the hybrid mode. So with the recent pandemic, we all are now a bit conversion with this hybrid system. So we'll try to make use of, make advantage of that as well. So workshop, today is the webinar, then the first workshop will be in December, January timeline, and the second workshop will be in April, May timeline. And as part of this project, we are also going to develop, as Vatsalya mentioned, that we are going to develop a sustainability or focused course on biofuel. So we do have several MOOC courses from our lab. You may have seen that there is an NPTEL SWAYAM platform, which is used quite extensively in India and sometimes abroad as well. Like I have seen people using it in Middle Eastern countries too. So we do have courses on sustainable engineering concept, life cycle analysis, on plastic waste, e-waste, and overall integrated waste management courses. So that's And so what we are trying to do is we'll develop a focused course on this biofuel component. So kind of taking what we are doing in the sustainable engineering concept and life cycle course, kind of starting from there and build this module on biofuel, and which will be used and it will be available on the ITF website. So today's webinar is being recorded, which will be there on the ITF website, and then all the material that we generate will also be available on ITF website, so that it can be used subsequently by people in India and anywhere involved in the similar countries, similar domain. So with that, I will stop, and then I'll hand it back to Ravi.
Thank you, sir, for the valuable insights onto the ITF LCA project of IIT Kharagpur.